Hey, sweet friends. So today I thought we would just walk around and take a look at a few things. I just take you with me on a little walkabout. We'll look at some ferments. We might look at the downstairs apartment, which I've done very little to. We'll look at my seeds that are started. We'll peek at the potager garden. It's nice sometimes just to kind of pop in and look at projects that have started or just kind of notice the changes that have been made. It's a little follow through. All right, let's go take a walk. Thought I'd give you a little glimpse at my harvest that I got today. It was a completely unintentional harvest. And the one trick I would say when you're bringing in a harvest is have a clean sink, have a clean kitchen, because you have a lot of work to do. So I have some onion tops here. I've got a bunch of random zucchini. Summer squash is very hard for me to grow, so this is thrilling to me. This is also one, but it didn't really come out as what it was supposed to. Let me see if I can find. It's supposed to be that. It's not, but that's okay. A celery that had bolted, a bunch of poppy rattles that the plant fell down, so I'm going to try to dry those. The teeniest little broccoli harvest you've ever seen in your life. Cilantro, and then all the kohlrabi. Not all of it, a couple are still in there, but it was starting to do this. I don't know what that is, so I decided it was time to get it out of there. And then some fennel, more kohlrabi, eggs, which we grab all day long. And then I was saving these fava beans to go to seed, these broad beans. But the outside started getting really soft, and that seemed like it probably shouldn't. It might have been absolutely fine, but because I've never dried them before, I just didn't know. I didn't want to risk it. The plants weren't that strong anyway, so I just went ahead and it'll just be a little handful of beans to go on a salad or something, a tiny little onion, and the cucumber. I forgot about the cucumber. Literally getting one cucumber per cucumber plant because of all the cucumber beetles, but we're dealing with it. And we have a lot of plants planted, so we probably won't get a huge bumper crop of cucumbers, but we will have some to enjoy. Here's a little follow-up on the kimchi. I think it's pretty much ready to go. It's very fermenty. It's got that flavor, but I'm gonna have a little for lunch and just see how I like it, and then decide. If it's done, it's going to go in the fridge. If I feel like it needs more time, it stays on the counter. But you can see I took the springs out because I wanted it to kind of pop back up a little bit, and I'm kind of stirring it. I actually tasted it, and it's definitely done. It's one of the spicier ones I've made. So then what I do is I just take them and put them in these containers, and then I store these in the fridge. The reason is because the jars are pretty good real estate, so the next thing that'll go in there is the kohlrabi. I'll ferment some kohlrabi. So this size jar I just love for fermenting, so I try not to store anything in there so that I can keep them in constant rotation. So I'll make this a couple of times this year, and I'll get about, 5 or 6 of these containers. And last year it lasted me all year. What you want to make sure is that the juice covers the vegetables. Even in the fridge, you always want to have whatever the brine is right up to the vegetables, so you can always press down a little bit, and typically it'll give off more juice as time comes. There will be some things that float, and that's okay once it's in the fridge, but something like that is what you want it to look like. And then I'll get the rest of that into another container, and then this one as well. So I imagine I'll have about 3 of these. So maybe next time I do this, I'll have 6 total. Okay, so I got the living room area cleaned out. Now I realize, to people who do not have ADD, Dave and I both have ADD, this is our process. It's a ridiculously swirly process. We could have just dealt with the sheets when we had the sheets and just, like, I wanted to just give them away, but Dave wanted to go through everything. So everything just got dumped. And then the more things get dumped, the more they pile up, the more you avoid them, on and on and on. But I am very glad I'm doing the befores and showing you the real deal, because I'm pretty good at makeovers and I'm very good at showing the end. But this is the part that I don't like to talk about. This is the stuff I don't like to show. So anyway, I threw a bunch of stuff in here. The stuff that I think we're going to keep, I threw on the chair and the bed. The stuff that Dave needs to go through to see if he wants to keep anything on the floor. Completely blown away by how much we just got done. Huge pile of donation. I am really happy. I'll show you the progress we made. I'm going to get some of these green onion tops. This is literally just from topping the onions. I had about a second batch of these that I forgot about. They were in a basket and I let them go and they just end up going in the compost. So I feel really bad about that. I mean, it's good. You know, in the compost it goes to make the soil for the food coming, but that was a bummer. So I am making green onion powder, and it's basically green because the onion tops are green. If you use onions, you'll get white powder. If you use red onions, I wonder if you would get red onion powder. That would be kind of cool. So I'm putting these just kind of flat in the dehydrator. These might not be flat enough here. Take a few off. Okay. So each week I basically come up with a theme for myself, like what will this week's theme be? Some weeks the theme is I need to start seeds. Some weeks the theme is get the garden under control, you know, weed. There was a week when it was just like completely the Air Bnb in New Hampshire where we had to focus on that. There are weeks when it's like preserve the food, hardcore preserving, and I'm focused on that. And I have been dreaming of the week when I get to think about working on this downstairs apartment. And while I won't be able to devote an entire week to it because my plans got a little changed, some of the kids were with their dad on the Cape, and my kid, who's been looking for a job all summer, got a job the week he's away. The only week he's away. The only time he's away. So I have to go get him tomorrow from the Cape so he can come and start his job. So there is that, but that won't take too much time, and it's the same place that Chloe's working, so I'm only going to be driving to one location. It won't add extra driving, which is great. All right, I'm going to put the lid on, but I am not going to turn this on while you are with me down here because it is so loud. All right, let me show you what we did. So we made piles. This pile will be stuff that we will keep in the house. This allows us to have one set of extra sheets for every queen bed that we have in the house, and something else, an extra mattress pad. I can't exactly remember, but basically I want one extra set of sheets for every bed in the house. This pile will go into a bucket, and that will go to the lake house. So if we ever stay at the Airbnb lake house, we won't have to touch the sheets that we use for the Airbnb. So that's great. I wanted to do a quick follow-up on the fermenting, because sometimes you watch these videos and people do these projects and then you never see what happens, and I don't want to do that. So here's the garlic scapes. I did not end up putting a weight on those, but I did end up putting a weight on these three in here. Let me take the top off and I'll show you that. Okay, you can't see the weight, but it's a little glass weight, and it just goes down and it holds everything under the surface. And then again, I swear by these tops because then I don't have to burp the bottles. And then I ended up doing one with pickles, 4 pickles, cucumbers. And I had to get these at the farmer's market because our cucumber beetles are so bad. So I just got these cute little pickling cucumbers. And I don't have another lid, so I just used this like cheesecloth kind of thing. It came in a set that I got jars for fermenting kombucha, for making kombucha, and then just a rubber band. You want to make sure it's nice and tight so the fruit flies don't get in. And then on the top of this, I actually put a grape leaf. We have grape leaves just growing wild. And I have that on top, and then I just come in and I'll push that down a little bit. And the grape leaf is there to, in theory, keep it nice and crisp. So these will just continue to hang out, and they are starting to smell pretty fermenty. What's the word? I don't know. Starting to sour. So these grew out of the cabbages that we harvested, but we left the roots in. Little tiny baby cabbages just started to pop out. Now I've tried this with lettuce that has bolted, and it will be bitter, so it doesn't really work. However, with the cabbage, it really worked. These are tender, delicious. I just ate one raw, but you could also just stir fry these up, or you could do just like a quick kind of refrigerator kimchi or sauerkraut. They are delicious. So if you have cabbages to harvest, don't take the roots out, don't pull the roots. Try to leave the roots for every vegetable that you possibly can, unless it's sort of getting in the way of what you need to plant next. But if you can, just sort of cut the vegetable right at the base, right at the soil line, and then let the roots decompose and feed the soil. And it is just such a win-win for you and the plants, because sometimes you'll get an extra little harvest like this. I've got some fennel here that I need to decide what to do with, and then a bunch of like really young celery. The pink celery was not really a winner. It bolted, and so I'm taking out as much as I can right now. The other celery that I grow, I think it's Tango. I grow that one every year. That one does really well, but I had heard that the pink celery might be a good thing for this area, but it just didn't. It bolted, and it could just be the weather this year in particular. But I will use all this. I will cut all this up, and I'll either get it in the freezer for soup starters, or just, make some soups and stews ahead of time. And this is grass, which my dogs would love. I wanted to show you the garlics that I missed taking the scapes off. Here are the scapes that started to come out in the drying process. You can see basically they start to turn into a little flower. And this is the only one that actually sized up. All the others are just like teeny little mini garlics. They're totally usable. I will be using them. But it's just an interesting little thing to see happen. I've never actually missed a scape before, but this year I missed a ton of them. And then these are red onions that we're saying we're done. They didn't get very big. This is the biggest one. The way you know they're done is they start to flop over and the leaves start to become brown. So I'll just be using these. I won't be storing these, but I am drying them out a little bit here on the sun porch, just on a cardboard box on top of the table. Hello, girls. Hello. The chicken have just discovered the joys of graham crackers. I had a package of graham crackers that was going stale, and they are like searching the ground looking for more crumbs. Well, let's walk over to the potager. Okay, thank you. I can't actually remember if I have even shown the furniture since it's been here. It has been very dry. We're basically in a drought, which means that I very rarely have to take in the cushions, which is like pretty unheard of around here. So they have just been staying out, and normally in New England, it's like take them in every night, which is kind of a pain. So that is a positive of the drought if we're trying to find positives. These are old vintage chairs that Dave had. I bought new cushions for them, and he went and power washed them, and they're looking pretty good. They rock, so they're really comfortable, and I love them. We call this the urban fire pit. This is a beautiful bowl that my friend Mara gave me that just has weathered so beautifully, and we have built many fires in it. We don't keep it on here when we do a fire, obviously, and some beautiful flowers. So I wanted to show you this because this is going to be the theme that I use for the Air Bnb apartment. I'm using this scheme: wood, kind of metal pots, like, terracotta, these gorgeous pillows. So I have some coming that are like a darker scheme, like a black and a gray, and then I'm going to do white bedding. So I'm just going to try to pull what you see out here into the apartment so that when people maybe come, they can just walk right out here to the potager garden. So I thought that would be nice. So it is overgrown. I've cut back a lot of stuff. Let me show you the bee balm. This is the bee balm that recently just bloomed, and these are the flowers. They look just like the leaves. Aren't they gorgeous? I just think that is so beautiful. I know everyone loves dahlias, but I think asters and zinnias are so beautiful. Then this sweet little chair somebody had on the side of the road and was giving away. It must have had a base at some point because there's like metal clips on the bottom. But I thought, what if I just tuck it in here, and as the plants grow and kind of overtake it, it looks like a little secret chair tucked into the potager garden. I thought that was sweet. Dave doesn't like it, but I like it. All right, so that is just a quick look at the potager. I wanted to make sure I showed you the furniture because we just love it so much. When I look out here, this was the vision that I had. Okay, next thing I want to show you is the seeds that I've started. So you hear a lot of people talk about a fall garden. And if you're anything like me, you're going to be like, well, what even is a fall garden? And I had to stop thinking about it like that. I had to stop thinking about it as like spring garden, summer garden, fall garden, winter garden, and just start thinking about it as this like living, breathing garden that kept time with the seasons. So technically this would be called a fall garden. I'm starting my fall garden, but it doesn't mean that the seeds are just like fall crops, because we've also got summer crops. We've got what would be considered spring crops. So it can just get a little confusing if you think about it that way. So I just like to think about it as like the next wave, basically succession planting. I start all the seeds on the stairs when once the weather is like above, 50, 60 at night, everything gets started on these stairs. There's a little bit of shade so that I can move things into the shade if they need some more shade than sun. But Delilah just knocked them over, a bunch over. So other than the lettuce that I just started, I moved everything over to the picnic table. And usually what I do is once they get big enough, I move them over to the picnic table. This is a more this would technically be considered hardening them off right now, even though they've been grown outside. They're hardening off to a little bit more sun. And I just take the hose and I just spray down the whole table. So you can see there's things like there's more bush beans, there's Chinese chives, tons of cabbage, beets, more broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cucumbers, hyssop, spinach, more cucumbers. Those aren't doing so well. More summer squash, dill, basil, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. I think those, I'm going to trip over the rake here. More Chinese chives, basil, cilantro, dill. The only issue with kind of seed starting outside right now in this weather is that you have to keep things wet. So I'm watering these like minimum twice a day, if not more. So you can see these have already started to dry out. We've got collards, chijimasai, bok choy, more Brussels sprouts. This one has a few flowers in there that I thought I might be able to get started for. You put them in like perennials, get them started now and then have them come up next year. More Chinese chives. These are the ones Delilah knocked over, the Napa cabbage. Some more Blue Lake bush beans, and then Swiss chard and beets. So you can get the idea. It's a lot of food. And everything won't necessarily have its own row. It's going to be popped in. These are plants that get popped in to empty spaces. You always want to have something going so you can pop things into empty spaces. And I was a little off this year because I kept putting off the seed starting. But for the most part, it wasn't too long of a gap. I'll pull this back so you can see the picnic table. So it's covered. And, you know, there's some things that are ready, like the bush beans definitely can go in. The Chinese chives can go in. The cucumbers can definitely go in. Everything else I'm going to give a little more time. Oh, the beets. The beets are definitely ready to go in. So the beets I have put in, you can see they're multi-sown. That means there's a bunch of seeds all in one. And each little individual cell will be planted into the ground, and the beets can grow together. And then with the cabbage, I decided just to throw down a bunch of seeds, just scatter them down, and I will prick those out. Thanks for having a little look with me around and checking on a few things. We'll definitely get into the garden soon. There's more fermenting to do, more canning to do. I think I'm gonna do the pickled beets and a honey pickled radish. So maybe we'll do that together for the next video. As always, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Bye. Don't eat my seeds. I'm watching you. I don't think you're invited. I don't think you're invited on the picnic table. Go, go, go. Go find another home.